it's Christine here from ChrisW Designs, and in this video I'm going to show you how to make the plain version of Genevieve. So let's take a look at Genevieve. This is the plain version without piping. It's a very fast sew and a fun sew. I've made mine using faux leathers. I've used 3 different colours. I used black, tan and beige. And Genevieve has an adjustable strap made from webbing, but you can of course make yours from whatever you wish, whether you want to use faux leathers or fabrics, that's entirely up to you. The flap closes with a magnetic snap, and underneath the magnetic snap we have a large slip pocket, and underneath that is a phone pocket. You can easily tailor that pocket to suit your phone in size. Inside the large roomy main compartment we have a zipper pocket and 2 slip pockets, one there and one there, and in the middle there's a nice little pen pocket there, and that's quite roomy. There we go. It's a fast sew and it's a fun sew and it's not a hard sew. So join me in making Genevieve. So in this video I'm making the plain version of Genevieve. I'm going to use a faux leather and I'm using fleece as my stabiliser. If you wish to use foam, if you want to see how that's done, you can refer to the piped version of Genevieve to see how I've applied the foam. Otherwise, follow along with me to make a fleece version. I'm also using faux leather for the exterior. So where I've used faux leather I have not interfaced, I've just stuck my stabiliser, which is a smackdown fleece. It's a self-adhesive fleece. I'm using that directly straight onto the faux leather. So I have cut an interior pocket, 2 lining and 2 interfacing pieces. As you can see, I've already interfaced the fabric. For the interior zipper pocket facing, I've cut 1 lining and 1 interfacing. The phone pocket has 1 lining and 1 interfacing. The body exterior, here we have my faux leather with the smackdown fleece already applied. 2 pieces. If you're cutting fabric, you need to cut 2 interfacing for that. Body lining, I've cut 2 lining pieces and 2 interfacing. For the front pocket, I have cut 1 exterior, 1 lining and 1 interfacing for the lining piece. If you've used fabric for the pocket, you need to cut an interfacing piece for that. For the gusset exterior, I've cut 2 exterior pieces, my faux leather. I didn't cut any interfacing for the faux leather, but if you're using fabric, cut 2 interfacing. The gusset lining, cut 2 lining and 2 interfacing pieces. For the slip pockets, 2 lining and 2 interfacing. For the plain flap, I have cut 1 exterior and 1 lining, and in my case just 1 interfacing because I've interfaced the lining side, but I did not interface my faux leather. I've just applied my smackdown fleece straight onto the faux leather. And if you're using a fabric, cut an interfacing for that. You also need a piece of Decaville 1 Heavy base stabiliser to add to the bottom of your gusset. For hardware, you need a slider, 1-inch slider, 2 rectangular rings, 1 inch wide. Depth is irrelevant, unimportant, whatever size you have or can get. A magnetic snap. We need a male piece, that's the piece with the piece sticking out, and a female piece with the indentation, and 2 washers. You need some webbing, or you can make your strap yourself if you like, but I'm using webbing, it's quick and easy. You need 168 centimeters or 66 inches, or you can of course make it whatever length you wish. If you wish to make it longer or shorter, that's entirely up to you. You also need a number 3 dress zipper for the zipper pocket, 28 centimeters, 11 inches or longer, cut to size. As you can see, this is much longer, and I'm just going to cut to size during construction. So retrieving your strap webbing, we're going to cut 2 pieces. I'm just going to level this end off. Cut 2 pieces 3 inches long. Like so. Just going to singe the edge. Just to help it stop fray. You can also put fray stopper on it if you wish. I'm currently out of fray stopper. I've ordered some, but it hasn't shown up yet. So we need to grab our rectangular rings and thread it through. Just going to stick a clip on here to hold it, like so. If your strap is not webbing and you have a right and a wrong side, the wrong sides are together. Excuse me. Like that. We're going to go over to the sewing machine and stitch as close as we can to each rectangular ring. I'm just going to change to my zipper foot. Move my needle over. My stitch length is going to be 3.2. I'm just going to baste the 2 side edges together, approximately 3 millimeters, 1/8 of an inch from the edge, or 6 millimeters, 1/4 of an inch, doesn't really matter. Now I'm going to stitch as close to the hardware as I can. I'm just going to start in the middle because I find the edges stay better aligned if I'm starting in the middle. Pressed the wrong button, didn't I? That's what happens when you swap from one machine to the other. You do silly things. That's one. Just going to baste the ends of this one too. Actually, I think I will start in the middle. Just like that. Doesn't really matter so much because I'm black, you don't see it. The thread is nicely disappearing in there. So there we have it. So retrieve your 2 exterior gusset pieces, and we're just going to put those right side together on this bottom end where it says stitch your gusset pieces together at this end. So we're just going to place those right sides together, and if you're using faux leather, clip the ends together, or if you're using fabric you can pin it if you prefer. So now we're just going to go over to the sewing machine and stitch this seam. So now I'm swapping back again to my ordinary foot. I'm going to stitch using a seam allowance of 3/8 of an inch or 1 centimetre. Got to move my foot back to the middle, and I'm going to stitch with a stitch length of 2.6 on this faux leather. If I was using fabric it would be 2.4. Like that. Now if you are using fabric you would press this seam apart with your iron, but I'm using faux leather, so I won't be doing that. So I'm just going to put a little bit of double-sided tape here just to hold this open, just long enough to get my... This double-sided tape doesn't really hold very well on faux leather, but it might hold long enough for me to get my fleece on there, which will then hold the seam open. I don't like using the cheap double-sided tape because I've had troubles before where it's totally seized up my machine and it's cost me a lot of money to get all the glue out of my machine. So I'm just going to pop a little clip on each side to help hold that open while I put on my stabilizer. Just find the center of this. It's just as bad as double-sided tape. Stick that down. And there we have our gusset fleece in place. So now I'm going to fuse my base stabilizer to my gusset piece. Going to center it in the middle over the top of the seam. Should have marked the other side of the stabilizer, but this is just scraps that I'm using, so it's got a little bit of fault on it, but that's okay, it'll work just fine. Covering it with a Teflon sheet so I don't melt anything. Yep. Now once that's fused, you need to go away and allow that to cool, because if you move it when it's still warm, it tends to then not stick as well, and it might come away later on, although it's less important here where we're going to be stitching a pattern on the bottom. But if you're not stitching a pattern, then it's extra important that you allow that to cool. So now that my Decaville has cooled, I'm going to stitch either side of the seam. I have switched to my walking foot because I'm sewing with faux leather. You can use a Teflon foot or a roller foot, depends what your machine has available. I'm going to up my stitch length to 3.2. And I'm stitching fairly close to the seam probably about 2 millimeters or 1/16 of an inch. Stitching the second side close to my seam. Now I went a little wonky there, but no one will notice on the bottom of my bag. So now we're going to draw some lines for some stitching. I recommend you check that whatever you use to mark this is going to come off later. If you're using a friction pen, bear in mind if you're in a cold country they may not. They may show back up again later on. A fading marker is a good choice. I'm just going to use chalk here, so hopefully you'll be able to see it. So we're making lines 1 inch apart, or 2.5 centimeters, starting at that middle seam there. This thing's not rolling in one direction. So we want to draw 5 lines, so we need 1 more. Same on the other side. Anyway, like that. And then we're going to draw a line down the centre of the gusset. You can mark that with your gusset piece by folding that in half just to find where the centre is going to be, using that crease. You can mark the centre of your gusset. Oh, I'm trying to pull the lid off and there isn't a lid. Like that. Now we draw a line down the centre. Like that. You can also draw another line 3/8 of an inch from the edge on either side. You won't be stitching on this line, this is just a guide to know where to pivot. Oh, this chalk pen. Obviously, I know not to stitch where I've gone crooked like that. I've done it again. So now that you have a big mess like I have here, we're going to go over to the sewing machine and we're going to stitch down this centre line. You're going to begin and end right on that other line there, not stitching beyond like my chalk marks. Okay, so now I'm going to stitch this line. I'm going to eyeball that and get that needle started right on the intersection of those 2 lines. My stitch length is 3.2. The machine always does that. It takes a stitch back when I don't want it to. You can pull the threads through on this instead if you prefer, and not at the back. So now I'm just going to go back over and draw some guidelines of where I'm going to stitch. Today's one of those days. I just dropped my ruler on the floor and broke the corner out of it. Nice one. Okay, so now with my messy chalk pen, I wish I still had my silver pen, I'm going to draw some more lines on this. Oh, Goodness me, I'm not having a good day. I think I might go back to bed. So we're going to go from this corner over to this other corner, just drawing a line. And then down across the next two boxes, down to the bottom. My pen doesn't want to work that way. Now across up to the next corner. Oh, good job, I know where I've got a stitch. What a mess. Like that, and then back down to this corner over here. Like that. Now I'm going to go back over to the sewing machine and I'm going to stitch these lines here. I'm not going to stitch these two side ones, they're just a guideline of where I'm going to pivot. So now I'm going to start over in this corner and follow my messy lines. Don't worry if it's not exactly, because it will still look great even if it is a stitch here and a stitch there that's gone a bit wonky. So now I'm also going to top stitch each one of these long lines, starting on the outer edge. Be fine. Now that we've stitched all those lines, I'm going to go over and trim all these threads away because they're annoying me and they don't need to be there. And I'm going to clean away the rest of my chalk, which is luckily almost all gone anyway now. So now that we have stitched the base of our gusset, we need to attach these or hold them in place until we baste them. I'm just going to center these and leave about 6 millimeters, 1/4 of an inch overhang, something like that. The main thing is that you're doing the same on either side of your gusset. Actually, we should put it wrong side down. Because when it's stitched it'll be right side up, and there's always a nicer side, so we'll use that. I'll turn this around. Velcro. And the rubbish sticks to it. Like that, and then we're just going to go over to the sewing machine and baste those two strap tabs in place. Now we're just going to baste these in place about 6 millimeters or 1/4 of an inch from the edge of the gusset. Leaving your 6 millimeter 1/4 of an inch overhang. Of course, measure it so you're more accurate than me, but eyeballing it is fine for me. And there, now we've got our two strap tabs attached. We'll move on to the next step. So retrieving our flap, we're going to need our flap lining first, because we're going to install our magnetic snap. So what we need to do is fuse a piece of Decaville scrap over where we're going to install the magnetic snap. So I'm just going to mark this spot here so I know where to fuse this. Like that. So I'm just going to fuse that over the top. Just keeping it out of the seam allowance down the bottom there. Okay, yep. So now that that's fused there, I'm going to allow that to cool before I fiddle around installing my magnetic snap. Okay, so now we need to mark where we're going to put our slits for our magnetic snap. Just going to mark it using this pattern piece as a guide. You can also cut the slits in there to make it easier to get the placement right. I'm just cutting this through the Decaville. Now normally I would add fray stopper on here, but at the moment I haven't got any. To grab the male part of your snap, that's the one with the sticky out bit. We're just going to put that through those holes after you've pretended I've added fray stopper. I've made the holes slits quite big enough. Like that. Just going to add a washer on the back side. Normally I do this on a firm surface, not a table where it shakes the life out of everything. So now what I do is put some scraps of interfacing over the top of that and fuse over it to protect the work. Doesn't matter how you do this, just need to get something fused over there to protect your bag flap from wear. There we go. Now we need to retrieve your front pocket. I'll just set this aside for the minute. Retrieve the front pocket, and we're going to install the female or thick snap piece into the front pocket exterior piece. Actually I need that. I'm going to make some holes in the pattern this time so I can easily mark the location of these snaps. So I need to do it into my faux leather. Like that. Actually I need to, I'm not going to fuse the Decaville on this one. Like that. Actually, let's see where I've cut my slits. Just going to fuse that over the top of that. And then I'll cut my slits properly. Now I've lost sight there. Now make sure you're using a pressing cloth if you're fusing something onto faux leather. Now I'm just going to go away and allow that to cool. So now that my Decaville has cooled, I'm just going to go back and cut these slits through the Decaville as well. Grabbing my other piece of magnetic snap. Take it through like that. Grab the washer. Now again, I would go and do this on a firmer surface because it's a bit bouncy here. Some people bend these in, some people bend them out. There's no right or wrong. You just need to do it however you prefer. I prefer mine inwards. I have my scraps of interfacing. I'm just going to stick over the top of that. There. So now I'll set that aside for the minute. Retrieve our other flat piece. Place them right sides together. Now we're going to clip them together all the way around. Okay, so now we have them clipped together. We're going over to the sewing machine and we're going to stitch all the way around our flap, leaving this top open. Okay, so now I'm going to stitch all the way around my flap using a 1 centimetre 3/8 of an inch seam, stitch length of 2.6. And there, now we've stitched all the way around our flap. And now I'm just going to grade this seam down a little bit. So that just means I'm cutting this faux leather down approximately 6 millimeters, 1/4 of an inch. Doesn't have to be measured. I'm just going to grab the pinking shears and I'm just going to trim a bit where there's curves. Like that. Now we're going to turn that right sides out. Smooth that out. Just running my finger in there, smooth that seam out. Now obviously because I've used faux leather I cannot press this, so I'm just going to smooth it out with my fingers. If you've used fabric, go ahead and press it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a few clips around the side here just to hold it on my top stitch. So now I'm going to go over to the sewing machine and I'm going to top stitch around here. And I'm just going to baste those raw edges together up the top there. So now I'm going to top stitch around my bag. I'll do across the top edge here where it's the raw edge of my flap, because that'll be hidden in the seams and it'll give me a good chance to check how this is going to stitch with the faux leather. I'm going to stitch at 3.2. I'm just stitching 3 millimeters, 1/8 of an inch from the edge. Nice and slow around this curve. And there we have it. I've stitched all the way around my flap, like so. Everything looks good, which is just as well because I can't really unpick the faux leather without making a mess and leaving holes. So retrieve your phone pocket and now we'll fold the top end down and we're just going to clip the two sides, or you can pin them, doesn't matter. All these big annoying clips in my container. Now along the bottom we're just going to mark a 10 centimetre or 4-inch gap. I can use my board here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Just like that. Doesn't have to be in the centre exactly or anything. Just leave a gap, that's just for turning. So that we're going to go over to the sewing machine now. We're going to stitch here, down there, and just down out to the seam. Same here, down. So now I am setting my stitch length back to 2.4. Seam allowance of 1 centimetre 3/8 of an inch. Pivot. Like so. So now we're just going to clip these corners. Like so. Turn. Get rid of these threads. Now, somewhere in my move I lost my nice poking stick, what I used to poke my corners out with. Haven't come across it yet. Don't know what I've done with it. Anyway, something blunt so you don't poke a hole in your work. Poke those corners out, and then we're going to give that a press. Now we're going to go back over to the sewing machine and we're going to top stitch that top edge. So now I'm going to top stitch the top edge of my pocket, 3 millimeters, 1/8 of an inch from the edge, using a stitch length of 3.2. Top edge is the one that is opposite the open edges. Like that. So retrieve your front body exterior. The front, I'm going to use my beige coloured piece as my front, and I'm going to position this pocket 4 3/8 of an inch down, or 11 centimeters down from this top or edge, centered left to right. Now I'm just going to stick it in place with some double-sided tape because I can't pin this pocket without putting holes in my faux leather, and I don't want to do that. to work out my placement of this to make it easier. Centre it left to right. Peeling this off. Now, it doesn't take a very wide phone. If you've got a wide, bigger phone, you might want to increase the size of your pocket. You can get an idea by folding your pocket piece in half and then put your phone up against it to see, you know, how much space is there, which is not a lot on my big fat phone. So you might want to increase the size of the phone pocket. Now once that's in place, we're going to go over to the sewing machine and we're going to stitch it in place. Okay, so now I'm going to stitch my phone pocket in place using a stitch length of 3.2, 3mm, 1/8 of an inch from the edge. I'm just going to back tack a bit on each corner. You can also stitch a triangle there if you prefer to make it secure. If you need, or you can even add a rivet if you want. But I'm just going to do a few back stitches. Like that. The top is open for your phone. So, retrieving our front pocket pieces. We have our magnetic snap in the exterior piece and our lining piece we put right sides together. I'm just going to put a few clips in there. You can use pins if you're using fabric. We're going to clip just this top edge because we're going to stitch just the top edge, and then turn like that. Now we're going to go over to the machine and stitch that edge. Back at the machine, I'm going to change my stitch length back to 2.6 and I'm stitching this top edge seam using a seam allowance of 1 cm, 3/8 of an inch. Like that. Now that I have stitched this top seam, I'm going to smooth this over and turn it. If you're using fabric, now you would press it, but I'm not using fabric, so I'm not going to be pressing it, only with my fingers. I'm just going to put a couple of clips in there to stop it from rolling. Now I'm just going to clip around the edge because we will baste these sides. like that. Now we're going to top stitch this edge and then baste that in place around the long edge. So it may be worth noting that whenever I'm changing my exterior coloured faux leather, I'm also changing the thread so that it matches, because I don't want to do a contrasting colour because it shows up too much if I go wonky. So my stitch length is 3.1 and I'm top stitching 3 millimeters, 1/8 of an inch from the edge. Going to continue all the way around to baste those edges together. Like that. Okay, so retrieving your front body exterior again. We're just going to grab our pocket. Now we're going to just put this lining side down onto the body piece, matching up the raw edges, and clip to hold. And now we're going to go back over to the sewing machine and we're going to baste that in place. Okay, so now I'm just going to baste this in place using a 3mm seam. Like that. Okay, so now we need to mark the bottom of our body exterior. Like that. And we grab our gusset exterior. We're going to match up the bottom with the bottom of the gusset exterior and just add a clip there. And now we'll bring the gusset around to the top and clip. Just clip down to about where it starts to curve. Same on this side. Might just go a little bit beyond where the top of the pocket is. So now we'll just add a couple more clips along the bottom here. And now we're going to go over to the sewing machine and we're just going to stitch these two top bits and this little straight bit along the bottom here, and then we will come back and clip those or staple them or whatever you want to do in place. It'll just be a lot easier if we haven't got these clips hanging about. Okay, so now we're just going to stitch these short bits just to hold our gusset in place. I'm going to use a stitch length of 2.6, seam allowance of 1 centimetre, 3/8 of an inch. A little bit beyond the top of the pocket, like that. And let's do the same on this side. Now I'm just going to stitch along this bottom section, along the straight edge. Doesn't matter exactly where you stitch up to, just so that you don't start stitching into those curves. Okay, so now we need to work on our curves. So I'm just going to grab some more clips. Now you may like to use a stapler in the seam here. See if this is going to staple through the finals. Yes. Like that, and this side. That's a bit better. Now we'll go over to the sewing machine and stitch those curves. So now we're going to stitch the curves. We're going to start off where we left off last time. Back up here near the pocket. The top of the pocket. Need to fold that out of the way and go around. Maneuver those folds a bit. Like that. Now we'll do the same on this side. Ending off where we ended off last time. And there now we have our curves stitched, we need to go and remove those staples because we don't really want those left in our work. So I've just pulled out all my staples, and I forgot to turn the camera on, but that's what I've just did. I've just removed all my staples. So now I'm just going to grab my pinking shears and just going to clip around these curves a bit. If you don't know the difference between notching and clipping, you can read all about that on my blog. So now we've done that, we're just going to go back over to the sewing machine and stitch another row of stitching very close to the first row of stitching. Not right on it, but right next to it. Okay, so I'm going to stitch a row of stitching right close next to the first row just to reinforce my seam, and it helps with any pulling, especially on vinyl, of the stitches. Like that. So now we've done that, we're going to repeat the process to install our back body exterior. Just grab my pattern piece, going to mark the very bottom, mark this side. Like that. And we'll just do this same thing again. We're just going to stitch the top uncurved bits into place and straight along the bottom before we work on the curves. Now we're just going to go over to the sewing machine and stitch these two short bits at the top and that little straight long edge along the bottom. That. Okay, so now I'm going to staple this in place, get this curve in the right spot. Just put some clips along here. Like that. So now we're going to go over to the sewing machine and stitch these two curves. Starting off where we left off before. like that. When we go back to the sewing machine to stitch our second row, which is what we will do now. So now I'm going to stitch my second row of stitching for this seam, pretty close to the first row, fixing any wonky areas that I've made. I'll just turn my bag right sides out. Push everything out. So now retrieve your flap. We're going to put that right side down onto the exterior body in between the two seams. I'm just going to clip that in place. Now we're going to go over to the sewing machine and we're going to baste that on using a 6mm 1/4 of an inch seam. Just going to remove that flat bed to make it easier. I'm just going to baste this flap in place using a 6mm 1/4 inch seam, or roughly, doesn't have to be exact. Like that. Okay, so now that we have basted our flap in place, we're just going to set our exterior aside for a little while, and we're going to work on our interior. So now grabbing your interior zipper pocket and interior zipper pocket facing, we need to do some marking on our piece here. We're going to draw a box that is 21 centimeters or 8 1/4 inch long in the middle of our piece here. So we'll just draw a line 1 inch down. If that's so you can see. Draw a second line, 1 centimeter 3/8 of an inch down from that first line. Like that. Oops. Chunk missing. Now we'll draw a V at each end, and then we'll draw a line down the centre. Retrieve one of your body lining pieces. I'm just going to fold a crease here so I know where the centre is. So now we need to position this 1.5 inches or 4 centimeters down from the top body, centered left to right. Stick a couple of pins in to hold it in place. Like that. Now we're going to go over to the sewing machine and we're going to stitch the top and bottom line. So now I'm just going to stitch the top and bottom line. I'm going to make my stitch length 2.4. I'm going to start at each point at the end there. Back tack to secure it. Like that. So I forgot to turn on the camera, so what I have done here is I've just grabbed my rotary cutter and knife and I've cut that center line like that, and then I've grabbed my scissors and I've snipped into each corner like that. And if you happen to accidentally slip your stitches, just go back over to the sewing machine and reinforce it where you have snipped them. So now we need to grab our iron and we're just going to press that way and that way. My iron's still heating up. I could sing you a song, but I don't think you'd like that. Like that. I'm just going to make a mark that is 1/4 of an inch or 6 millimeters approximately, it doesn't have to be exact, back from our end of our stitching on each piece here. And yes, I dropped my ruler and broke the tip off it. Very annoying. So now we're going to go and top stitch from that line to that line, and the same on this side, very close to our stitching, making sure this is out of the way when we do that and that's out of the way when we do that side. So now I'm going to top stitch from that line, very close to the stitching. Doesn't have to be an exact measurement here, but you just want to be in from the stitching a little bit. I'm going to put it on my top stitch length of 3.2. There, like that. Just for the record, that stitching is called understitching. Just get rid of these threads. So now we need to push that lining through to the other side and press to form our box. Just going to use my finger for starters. Now if I had my phrase stopper in stock, I would put a little dob in each corner just to be sure that that doesn't fray out. Going to press from both sides. Now set that aside for the minute. Retrieve your zipper pocket and your zipper. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut my zipper to length. It's going to only need one of these pieces for the minute. Snip that off. Now I'm just going to pop over the sewing machine and add a few little stitches on each end to stop the zipper pull from coming off the end and to stop these ends from coming apart. About 6 millimeters, 1/4 of an inch from the end, like that. Same on this side. Doesn't matter what colour thread or anything there because it'll be hidden inside your pocket. Grabbing some double-sided tape, run a piece along the top edge of one of your zipper pocket pieces. Now we need to pull the backing off. And we're just going to press this into place, wrong side or the back side of your zipper to the right side of your fabric. Like so. So we're going to go over to the sewing machine and stitch that in place. So now I'm just going to change to my zipper foot. Move my needle over. Stitch length of 2.4, and I'm going to stitch a scant 6 millimeters, 1/4 of an inch from the edge of the zipper tape, so definitely no more, a very skinny 6 millimeters. Like that. So now we need to grab our iron and just press our pocket away from the zipper like this. Retrieve your second zipper pocket piece and your double-sided tape. Peel the backing off, put your pocket pieces right sides together, matching up the side edges and the top of your zipper pocket with your zipper tape. Like that. Now we're going to go over to the sewing machine and stitch that seam. Here we are, stitching 6 millimeters or scant 6 millimeters, 1/4 of an inch from the edge of the zipper tape. Like that. Now we're going to press the other pocket piece away from the zipper. Retrieve your body lining piece with the zipper pocket window Now we're just going to put some double-sided tape along the top and bottom edge of your window. Like that. Press so it makes sure it sticks properly. Peel off the backing. Now retrieve your pocket. Now whether you want your pocket to open left to right or right to left, now is the time to decide which side to put your pull on. So if you want it to open right to left, you put it on that side. If you want it to open left to right, put it on this side. Like that. Line up the edges. And then we're just going to stick that in place. And you're happy that that is even. Then we're going back over to the sewing machine to stitch around that window, but first we need to just pin that pocket so that it doesn't get in the way of our stitching. Like that. Now if you want to do the neatest job, you can leave some long tails and then don't back stitch and pull it through to the other side when you're finished stitching at the beginning and the end. That will give you a very nice neat finish if you stop in the exact same hole you start, so you can't see any back stitching. But I'm not that fussy, so I'm just going to do my stitch length at 3.2 and I'm just going to do a couple of back stitches. I'm stitching approximately 3 millimeters, 1/8 of an inch from the window. I'm going to back stitch here just to reinforce that. Now remove your pins, flip over, press this with your fingers downwards, like that. Now we're just going to trim off our pocket level down the bottom here. Now you can either press the seam up with your iron or use some double-sided tape, or both. I'm going to press, tape stayed behind. It's annoying. Just going to press the seam allowance up. Like that. Flipping that over. I'm going to make sure that I get these two bottom edges even. I'm going to pin it to hold that while I get this right. Now I'm just going to grab my iron and give it a press as well. Hopefully that'll make it stay put even better. Take that pin out. can trim some of this excess away as well at the top. Now we're going to pin the sides. A pin from this side because we're going to stitch from this side. Now we're going to go over to the sewing machine and we're going to stitch those two sides. We're leaving the bottom open. So I don't need my zipper foot for this, I need my regular foot. Putting my needle back in the centre. Stitch length of 2.4. Now I'm just going to stitch very close to those little V's there, just to secure that at the end of the pocket. Now I'm going to stitch my pocket seam at 3/8 of an inch or 1 centimetre. Same at the other side. Just going to stitch across those little V's again. Little triangles. Actually it helps if you move your zipper out of the way. Like that, and if you have any extra zipper tape hanging over like I do, you can snip that off now. So now we have our zipper pocket. Pretty nifty, eh? Set that aside. Grab your slip pocket pieces. Now we're going to place those right sides together. And we're going to pin the top and bottom edges. Now we're going to go over to the sewing machine and we're going to stitch top and the bottom edges. Okay, using our 3/8 of an inch 1 centimetre seam allowance, I'm just going to stitch these two seams. My stitch length is 2.4. Like that. Okay, so now we need to turn this right sides out. I'm just going to actually press those seams a bit. They're open because that'll be easier to get a nice neat edge at the top and bottom if I press them open first. I can also just press them back again, but just the act of pressing them open will give you a neater finish. Now turn right sides out. Now we're going to go over to the sewing machine and we're going to top stitch along there, 3 millimeters, 1/8 of an inch from the edge. And then we're just going to baste those two sides together. Okay, so I'm stitching 3 millimeters, 1/8 of an inch from the edge, and I'm putting my top stitch length back up to 3.2. Baste the sides together. Approximately 3 millimeters, 1/8 of an inch from the edge. Now retrieve your second lining piece. And we're going to position this 2 inches down from the top. Or 5 centimeters. And pin. Not pinning to my ironing mat. Now we're going to go over to the sewing machine and we're going to stitch this long bottom edge in place. Top stitching 3mm 1/8 of an inch from the edge, and we're going to baste the sides in place. Okay, so now I'm going to baste this side edge 3mm 1/8 of an inch from the edge. Now I'm going to top stitch this bottom edge 3mm 1/8 of an inch from the edge. I'm going to baste the sides in place again. Like that. Now we're going to go and divide the pocket up. So now we're going to divide our pocket up. We're going to draw some lines, grabbing a friction pen or fading marker. Mark in 12 centimeters from the edge, and down the bottom we're going 15.7. Draw a line. You can double check that that is actually going to be straight and not crooked, because sometimes for some reason that variation, the measurement varies and I don't know why. Now we're going to measure in 2.5 centimeters or 1 inch from the previous line. Draw a line. Like that. Now we're going to go over to the sewing machine and we're going to stitch those 2 lines. That'll create a pen pocket and 2 slip pockets. You can of course divide it up however you wish. Now we're going to stitch the top of our pocket to the bottom on each line. Top stitch length of 3.2. I'm going to back tack a few times to secure that. Same at the bottom. Now you can stitch across and stitch up if you would like to do it that way. I'm just going to restart. It doesn't matter which way you choose to do it. Like that. Now I'm just going to press those friction pen marks away. Okay, so now that we have secured our slip pockets in place and stitched to make some extra pockets, we'll set that aside and grab your gusset lining. Now down the bottom end where it says stitch your gusset pieces together at this end, we're going to put them right sides together, pin those 2 edges or clip. Now going over to the sewing machine and stitch that seam 1 centimeter 3/8 of an inch in width. Now I'm going to stitch 3/8 of an inch or 1 centimeter from the edge. Put my stitch length back down to 2.4. Now we're going to go over to the ironing board and press that seam open. Okay, so now we need to press this seam open. Now retrieving one of your lining pieces, the one with your slip pockets attached, just fold it in half to get the centre bottom. And make a mark. Now retrieving your gusset piece again, going to line that bottom seam up with that mark, right sides are together, and pin. Bring that around to the top and pin. Same on this side. Now we're just going to work our way around pinning in place. Now it might be easier for you if you just snip into your seam allowance a little bit here and there around the curve. Do not snip right in, just go in about 3 millimeters, 1/8 of an inch up to 6 millimeters, 1/4 of an inch, but no more, just so that that's going to lay easier around the curve. Like that. Now we're going to go over to the sewing machine and stitch this seam all the way around. So now we need to notch our curves. Going to use pinking shears to do that. Like so. Now we're going to grab our other lining piece. This is the one with our zipper pocket attached. Going to mark the centre bottom. Like so. Now this time we're going to leave a gap of about 11 inches or 28 centimetres. So just going to mark that there. Now I'm just going to line that up with that bottom edge. Even though I'm not going to stitch it, it'll just help get that right centre point. Now we've got the right sides together, so we need to repeat the process of pinning this in place up to that mark there, because we're going to leave the bottom edge open for turning, and then we will stitch that opening closed through the bottom of our zipper pocket. Makes it super easy to turn and get a nice neat finish at the bottom of your lining. Now what I usually do is I place 2 pins right next to each other at that point where I want to stop, to remind myself not to keep stitching. Otherwise I forget and I stitch the whole thing. like that. Now we're going to go over to the sewing machine and we're going to stitch those two sides, and we're going to leave this bottom section open. Take that pin out there, leave that open like that. Okay, so now I'm stitching with my 3/8 of an inch 1 centimetre seam allowance. Make sure you keep your zipper pocket up out of the way. Don't need to have that stitched into the seam. Back tack a few times there just to make sure that's nice and secure. Same on this side. Get my pins out. Like that. So now you have a hole in the bottom of your lining for turning. Retrieving your lining and your body exterior. The body exterior is right side out, the lining is wrong side out. Now we're going to pop this exterior down into our lining. Now you can decide here whether you want the zipper pocket next to your flap at the back or whether you prefer to have that at the front. So I'm just going to line up these gusset edges, open the seams so that it reduces the bulk a little bit, and clip into place. Make sure that hardware is downwards inside your bag and the flap is also down inside your bag. Those fabric and, in my case, faux leather edges need to be lined up, but the straps stay sticking out. I'll do the other side. Need to pull that out a little bit, just do so. Down the bottom. Make sure that hardware's downwards again. So when you've got that all clipped, we're going to go over to the sewing machine and we're going to stitch all the way around the top of our bag. So I'm just going to remove my flatbed. And this stuff that I've got here. I'm just going to start in the middle, doesn't matter whether it's at the back or the front. I'm going to stitch a 3/8 of an inch 1 centimetre seam with a stitch length of 2.6 2.4 if I had all fabric. Now I'm just going to stitch that a second time to make it nice and secure. I'm going to stitch a couple of extra times across the strap tabs just to make sure they're secure, and I use this opportunity to fix any wonkiness that I may have created. When I get to the strap tab, I'm just going to go over a few times like that. Like that. Okay, that's stitched a second time. Okay, now that we have stitched the top of our bag, we need to just pull this lining up over the top of our bag like this. Super easy. So now open your zipper pocket, and through the hole in your zipper pocket we're going to pull our lining out, not the zipper pocket, just the lining. Like so. I'm just going to pin that together. Can match up those center marks again. So now that we have that bottom pinned, we can go and stitch that shut. So as you can see, it is through the hole in the bottom of the zipper pocket. So now we're going to stitch the bottom of our lining closed through the zipper pocket. It's just a 3/8 of an inch 1 centimetre seam as always. There, we have stitched our lining shut. So now we need to push our lining back down inside our bag. Push your pocket down in there for now too. Just going to push that in there and through the hole in your zipper pocket. Just need to make sure we run our fingers around and make sure everything's pushed out properly. Like that. And now we're just going to use our fingers to manipulate this top seam. Now it also helps a little bit with when you've used faux leather if you just whack that down a bit, just to help that sit. So I'm going to do that on a firm surface because it's just going to bounce here if I try and do it here, but I'm just going to go whack, 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 whack all along that seam. Now with your fingers manipulate that. Put some clips to hold it down. If I was using fabric, I would pin this. Now we're going to go over to the sewing machine and we're going to top stitch all the way around. So now I'm going to stitch all the way around the top of my bag. I'm just going to start in the middle of the back of my flap. It's a little bit awkward to maneuver this into place. Those clips, I don't want to go underneath the free arm. I just have to make some space for my free arm. Actually, I'm going to change to this foot here. It's just got an edge guide on there just to help me keep my top stitch width. I'm going to stitch with a stitch length of 3.4 because I'm going on this vinyl and it's probably going to want to do it shorter than what it actually should be. Just keep feeling that fabric's pushed under there. To be maneuvered around so you can get at this. thread colour if you wanted to match if you are using different colours like I am, but I'm not going to. Whoops. Thick there, I probably should have gave it a whack with a hammer. Probably blunted my needle now. Get that through, I'm going to have to change my needle. So I'm going to do that, I'm going to change my needle. So I bent it a little bit. Sure that lining's smooth down over there. Meet back up where I started. And there we go. Now, it's getting close. Okay, so now that we have top stitched around the top of our bag, we need to close the bottom of our zipper pocket, which I nearly forgot to do. And just if you find that tends to squish out of shape, just manipulate it with your fingers and squish it a bit, especially with faux leather. You can press it if you've got fabric, but with the faux leather you're just going to need to really sort of work it with your fingers just to get it to sit better and stay sitting better. Could even give it a few whacks with the hammer if you need to, gently. Cover your work with something. There, now we need to close this zipper pocket, so just pull that out, line up the edges. I like to snip away those corners a bit. Like that. I like to pin this because I find it holds better. It keeps the edges together. Now we're going to go over to the sewing machine and stitch. I'm going to put my flatbed back on again. Now I'm just going to stitch top stitch this closed, 3.2. Very close to the edge. Once you've stitched it, I suggest checking that it has stayed lined up and that you don't have any holes in your pocket. If everything looks good, then you're all done with that. So the batteries went flat on my other camera. What I have done on each end of my strap, making sure that they're on the right sides, so on the same side end of each strap, I've drawn 2 rectangular boxes, approximately 1 inch, 2.5 centimeters wide, and just in a little bit from the edges. And so I have now put this strap with the right side up through under the bar, over the top, pulled it through about 4 centimeters and clipped to hold. And now I'm going to stitch that. I'm going to put my zipper foot back on. Just allows me to get a little bit closer to the hardware. I'm going to change to my black thread because I do not want pink stitching on here. Okay, so now I'm going to stitch my rectangular box. I'm going to start by putting my needle over the other side so that I can stitch . Like that. Not that you can really see very well on that black, but that's stitched into place. So now, with our bag flaps facing us up on the right hand side, we're going to place our strap end through the rectangular slider like so, with the box facing upwards. Pull that through till you meet your slider, push that through there, pull that through a bit. Mine's twisted, there we go. Now we need to take that through the other side, back in towards the center of the bag, pull it through about 3 to 4 centimeters, 1¼ to 1½ inch roughly, and clip to hold. Now we'll go over to the sewing machine and stitch that box. And I apologise for the weird angle and not very clear view because my battery's flat on the other camera. So now I'm going to stitch my strap. I'm just going to take that off a little bit easier. Make sure those edges line up. Actually, I'm going to start in the middle of the strap. It helps to keep it lined up. I should have done that last time, but I forgot. I like to stitch a bit extra across the bottom there just to make sure that it helps with the fraying too, that doesn't come undone. And there we go. So there you have it. That's how you make Genevieve. If you've enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe and hit the like button, and click on that bell to be notified when I add new videos, and there's a lot more coming, so it'd be great if you could pop back and follow my channel, see what I'm up to next, and hit the like button. And you'll find more of my patterns at www.chriswdesigns.com, so be sure to pop by and check them all out, because I've got quite a few different ones on there. And hit the like button. But for now, catch you later.